Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
Have you ever tried any kind of, tried, that makes it sound like it's recreational. And you know what, for a lot of people it is. But have you ever tried any kind of opioid painkiller? Has that ever been a thing for you? It was the weirdest darn thing. I had this one, like, I don't know why. I had one or two of them when I was a teenager and haven't been bothered by them in years. But you ever had one of those warts on your fingers? Like, I used to get them right at the point where my fingernail met my finger, like that skin, that area. And what you do is you put a little of wart be gone or whatever the hell it is on it, and eventually the thing dries up and falls away, and you don't have that problem anymore. But I'll never forget, and that happened to me like 3 times in the space of about a year when I was a teenager, like in high school, maybe the 10th grade or the 9th grade. And then I remember, flash forward to a couple years later, I am on tour with my band, and I noticed this thing that looks an awful lot like a wart forming on the inside of my pointer finger. That spot, which is a really inconvenient place to have anything additional, because you're trying to pick stuff up, you're trying to grab stuff, you're trying to hold microphones, as I was in my case, and it actually became kind of painful. So I got myself some wart be gone, and the freaking thing didn't go away. And it didn't go away, and it didn't go away. And eventually, like, I hacked away at it with a pocket knife, as one does when you're a 20-year-old punk rock kid that doesn't know any better. And it just started bleeding everywhere, as opposed to being able to get rid of it. Now, warts, I always found, like, just, like I said, fell off and were easy to remove, and whatever the case may be. Sorry, this is not especially appetizing talk, but I went to the doctor. I was like, hey, man, this wart won't go away. What the hell? And he's like, it's not a wart. That's why the stuff you've been putting on it doesn't work and won't work. I was like, well, what is it? And he's like, actually, what it is the capillaries under the skin have been knotted. I was like, no kidding. How does that happen? He's like, any number of ways. That's not important. What is important is that we get rid of it. I was like, all right, how do we get rid of it? He's like, I'm going to cauterize it with some silver nitrate. I was like, no kidding. How does that go? And he's like, well, first I got to give you this shot in your finger. And so he gives me a shot in my finger, and I can't feel a thing, not a thing, zip, zing, nada. And then he takes a silver nitrate stick and applies it to this thing, which, you know, like I said, looked like a combination of a wart, maybe mixed with a blood blister or something. And it's a little freaky. I don't know if you've ever been through anything like this, but he applied the silver nitrate stick and it cauterized it. But as he was doing it, I was like, boy, whatever was in that shot, I'm glad I got it beforehand, because there's actually smoke coming out of my finger. Like, part of me is being burned away right now. That's crazy. And then he finished and, you know, put a Band-Aid on it. And he was like, here's the thing. That's going to hurt an awful lot when the anesthetic I injected into your finger wears off. So here's some pain pills. And I don't remember what they were, but I do remember asking him, okay, sweet. And he was like, did you drive here? I was like, yeah, I did. And he was like, you don't take them until you're not going to be driving for a significant amount of time. And so I actually called up my tour manager. I was like, hey man, can you come and pick me up, because my finger's really starting to hurt and I've got these pain pills and I'm not supposed to drive on them. And he was like, okay. So I popped one of these pain pills, and I don't remember exactly what it was. It was some form of opioid. And instantly, it wasn't so much that the pain went away. It was just the fact that I didn't care. I didn't care about my finger. I didn't care about the pain. I didn't really feel the pain. And I was having a great old time. And I talked to my tour manager. I was like, dude, I haven't touched any kind of substance in a very, very long time. And this is pretty good. Like, back in my two-fisted days when I was sort of experimenting with interesting things, this would have gone right to the top of my list. And he was like, oh, man. Is that not a thing in England? I was like, what? And he was like, where you grew up in England, abusing that sort of stuff. Do people do that? I was like, no. I mean, and here's the thing about England. That stuff that the rappers and folks drink where they pour codeine cough syrup into their cup of Sprite and get blazed out of their mind on that stuff. That's over the counter. It'll cost you $1,000 on the street here, but you can buy codeine Linctus cough syrup over the counter in England. You can buy Nurofen and codeine over the counter in England, and nobody bats an eyelid. Here, it's a controlled substance, and you got to get a prescription. And I don't know, maybe that contributed to the fact that nobody really seemed to abuse it. Like, if you were going to be sort of like a hard partying, drug taking type of person, you do what you have to do. You get out in the parking lot and you score like a real man, or something of that nature. But I will never forget the feeling of this stuff and going, this is pretty good.
Let's start the show.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So there I am. I had this weird thing on my finger. A knotted capillary, the doctor called it. And it was causing me some pain and discomfort, so he cauterized it with some silver nitrate, and he used this sort of like local anesthetic injection to make it so I didn't feel it when he actually burned something off of my body. It was weird thing watching smoke come out of my finger as he took that silver nitrate stick and burned it away. And he told me not to drive on these pain pills he'd been given. He was like, I'm going to give you these, but do not drive on them. And I was like already in some serious pain. So I called my tour manager. I was like, can you come pick me up? Because this hurts like a lot. And I want to be able to take these pain pills they gave me. And I'm in the car, my tour manager driving me back to the studio. And I'm like, dude, the stuff that I've taken, and I don't remember what it was, but it was some sort of opioid painkiller. I was like, this is right up there with all the stuff I used to experiment with. I mean, stronger, more powerful. Like, I was never into... I smoked pot when I was a kid. There, I said it. And I don't think that's any secret to anyone that's listened to the show for any length of time. And there was some other stuff that I experimented with as well, but it was never a case of seeking a down. I was always seeking an up. But this, the only down I ever sought was the wacky tobacco. But this felt freaking great. And I was like, dude, wow. I'm blazed out of my mind. This can't be medicinal. This can't be something that just got handed to me by a doctor. This seems like entirely too much fun. And he was like, you've never tried this stuff before? And I was like, no, not even a little bit. And he's like, why is that? I was like, well, stuff like this is legal in England. And when you're a rebellious teenager, the idea of going to a chemist or a pharmacist or whatever the hell it is you want to call it, getting something over the counter and using that to get out of your mind, that's not as much fun as doing something that represents true rebellion and an act of, a felonious act, if you will. So kids that I knew weren't touching this stuff. Adults that I knew weren't touching this stuff when I grew up in England. You want to get high? Well, you get out in the parking lot and you score like a real man. That's what you do. But I was like, dude, this stuff feels freaking fantastic. And he was like, there's a big problem with that stuff in this country. I was like, really? And he was like, oh yeah. No, he was like, 9 out of 10 kids that are messed up at a party that you're going to discover in America are usually doing something like that, and maybe mixing it with alcohol. I was like, I can't even begin to imagine mixing it with alcohol. And the weird thing was I felt so freaking fantastic on this stuff when it started to wear off and the pain in my finger came back. I tossed the bottle. I was like, I'm not taking any more of this stuff. This seems like it could be habit forming. Now, this goes back a ways before people really cottoned on to what opioid painkillers and OxyContin were all about. Like, now it's being called an epidemic, and these are things that have been abused since the dawn of time. But I don't think there was as much of a stigma around them. Travis, weren't you telling me that when OxyContin first came out, opioid painkillers, they were kind of hailed as the wonder drug, something that was going to revolutionize pain management?
Exactly. And I think the issue, was just that they didn't realize how addictive they were and their ability to be abused. OxyContin was, it was the end-all be-all of pain medication.
I I mean, here's the thing. I took something, and I'm not sure if it was OxyContin. I don't know.
I'm betting that you took hydrocodone is probably what you took.
There's something in the family of opioid painkillers, but I was like, this feels great. I don't want to have this stuff in my life because I can totally see how, and by the way, I was a kid that did not care when it came to, getting out of my mind on different stuff. I messed around with all sorts of different substances, as you would imagine a teenager in a rock band would. I was having a great time all the time. And at one point, I just decided it wasn't for me. I'll never forget. I was like, I don't want to do this stuff anymore. I'm not interested. I felt physically sick. I'll never forget. Somebody offered me drugs once, and just seeing them made me feel physically sick. I'm like, no, that's it for me. I'm gonna, and I told myself I was gonna take a break, and then I never touched anything for the rest of my adult life. And shortly thereafter, started saying that I was straight edge. And the reason I said I was straight edge, for those that don't know, straight edge is this kind of old school punk rock thing that the term was coined by Ian MacKaye of Minor Threat. And the idea is that you're straight edge, meaning you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't take drugs, you don't believe in casual sex. And I just started saying that I was straight edge because being a guy in a band on the road, everyone was trying to get you to drink and mess up all the time, and I was just not interested. But I got all this pressure from folks to, go nuts on whatever the hell it was, and I found they didn't respect my decision to not do that until I said I'm straight edge. Whoa, you're straight edge? All right, cool, never mind. And so I've been straight edge my entire adult life, pretty much. I gave up more or less everything right around the time I was 18. But as much as I had experimented with stuff, and as much as I'd spent a good portion of my teenage years out of my mind on one thing or another, I had almost never, ever taken something, done something, experimented with something, and felt this could get me into serious trouble. I'm never touching it again. And that's immediately what I felt with this over-the-counter, well, not over-the-counter, but this painkiller that had been prescribed to me by a doctor. So how they didn't see this coming when I took that stuff once and thought, this is a bad thing that I must not have in my life, is kind of freaking beyond me. It's an interesting one. But anyways, there's an interesting piece of progress that has been made. I would probably put this in the category of too little too late, but the makers of OxyContin are going to stop pressuring doctors to prescribe them. Money making, skills on the mic, give me paid every day, and for part of the battle, just bow down, better act like you know.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So it took me one little pill to realize that opioid painkillers were not something that I wanted in my life. One little pill to make me go, I could see myself getting into trouble with this sort of thing. And bear in mind, I was this crazy punk rock kid that experimented with literally most things. And I never once felt like I need to not do this because this could wind up destroying my life so quickly. I never really felt that at all. And look, I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and do anything or say that anything else is safe. As you know, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, I am a big proponent in not drinking, not smoking, not having casual sex, and not doing a lot of the things that a lot of people consider to be a lot of fun. But just the level of back away, danger that I felt from one opioid painkiller that wasn't even OxyContin, so I'm guessing it's nowhere near as strong as it, really kind of makes me scratch my head when people say they didn't realize this stuff was addictive until it was too late. Like, really? Because I think I knew, like, right off the freaking bat within the first 15 minutes of having popped the pill. So, I don't know. That screams hypocrisy, and that screams of the almighty dollar, just absolutely erasing the principles of the people making this sort of stuff. But a huge part of the opioid problem in this country has to do with painkiller prescriptions. This may put a dent in it. Purdue Pharma is the company that makes OxyContin. It's one of the most common narcotics doctors give out for pain, but now they're going to stop pressuring doctors into handing it out like candy. They sent out an email to clients last week that said they're cutting their sales staff in half, and starting today, they won't be sending pharmaceutical reps to doctors' offices to promote any type of opioid medications. Obviously, this won't completely solve the problem of people abusing pain meds, and other drug companies may or may not follow suit, but it's a start. And we also don't want it to sound like they're just doing it out of the goodness of their own freaking hearts. Several states recently filed lawsuits against Purdue, claiming they misled people about the risks of painkillers like OxyContin. So it's a business decision, and a business decision that they made after realizing they'd ridden that wave of dirty money as far as they could, because they knew, if I knew within the first 15 minutes of popping a pill that this thing could mess up my life, then they damn sure knew the moment that thing hit the market. Have you ever had any experience with something like this, Travis?
I think I took what you took, which I think what you were probably prescribed was hydrocodone. And I had like a bump on my leg at one point, and it wasn't like a growth. It was like, you could tell there's a tear or something. And I went to my doctor and I was like, hey, this kind of hurts. And he felt it and he's like, yeah, that's not normal. He's like, did you feel a tear? And I was like, I don't know what I felt. And so he's like, well, I want you to go get, an MRI. Let's see what we can figure out. So it came back inconclusive, and he's like, well, I want you to go see a general surgeon, and maybe he has some idea. So I went and saw this general surgeon. I think I was working at the radio station at the time, and he felt it, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, what are you doing for this afternoon? I was like, I have an appearance at this rock climbing place for the radio station, like at 7 tonight. I'm like, nothing until then. Why? He's like, you want to slice it open and let's have a look around? I was like, can I watch? He kind of smiled. He goes, yeah.
Oh, that's right. There was a point where you were determined to go to school to become a surgeon. So yeah, this is probably like...
And I still want to be. So yeah, this is like kid in the candy store. And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you can watch. So he did exactly what your guy did for the most part. He shot me up with lidocaine, which is the local anesthetic, and then he was kind of poking on it. And he's like, you feel anything? I'm like, no. I'm like, how do you know if it works? He's like, well, we'll know when we slice it open. And I'm like, okay. He's like, if you start to feel something, let me know. I'm like, okay, cool. So he takes the scalpel and starts making a few little cuts, and he got a little deeper. And I'm like, oh, I think I feel something. He's like, okay. So he shoots a little more lidocaine down in there, and then it was good, and he cut it open and let me see, put a little retractor in there and pulled my my leg open, and I'm looking in, I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool.
What was it? Like a muscle tear?
Yeah, it was a tear in the fascia, which is it's a lower layer of skin that separates like your upper layers and like your and like before you get to the muscle or anything like that. So he found a little tear there, and he's like, maybe it's causing some discomfort. So he stitched it up and stitched my leg up, and then he said, this is really going to hurt later tonight, so I'm going to prescribe you some hydrocodone. And I'll tell you, the stuff was great. It was real good. I didn't feel any pain when I was on it, that's for sure.
Did you wind up going, this could be a lot of fun, potentially?
Yeah, if I had been into drugs, then yeah, because it made you feel incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And I had friends who were like, hey, sell me what you don't use. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And I'm thankful I didn't, because I ended up becoming a cop, and that would have been a real issue.
I give you a perfect example. And people, this drug is, people know that there's a problem with it. We've known for a long time that there was a problem with it, yet people push it. When I had my ankle, like people that were listening around the time might recall that I blew out my ankle. Don't know exactly how, it just happened. And I was like in screaming pain to the point where I was like crawling up and down stairs. And I have done a bazillion stupid things on skateboards and motorcycles and BMX bikes over the years that have led my ankle to be sort of like something I can't really count on in the long run. But something happened where I tweaked it and I had to go into the hospital. I was like, you gotta, there's something wrong. Like, this hurts. This is some of the worst pain I've ever experienced. Figure it out. And not only did they not figure it out, but they're like, well, we don't know what it is, but let's just give you something for the pain. I was like, what you got? And they're like, you want some OxyContin? I was like, no, that stuff's like, have you read any news? Have you read any news at all recently? I want no part of that. And they looked at me and they're like, do you have a problem with opioid painkillers? like eyeballing me. Like all of a sudden I was going to go on like, because I was turning it down, they thought I was some sort of junkie that was going to knock over drugstore. Like they looked at me with such suspicion when I refused it. And I was like, no, I just don't have any desire to put that stuff in my body. They're like, are you sure you don't have a problem with it? Are you sure you don't have a big junkie style problem with this stuff? Are you sure you're not holding up CVS's on it? Well, not that far, but that seemed to be the implication. It was crazy. I'd never been looked at with so much suspicion. I was like, no, I don't have a problem with this stuff. Never taken it before. And they're like, oh, well, then you should just take it. It'll be fine. I was like, hold on a second. Let's just examine what happened here. I was under suspicion as someone that would have a problem with OxyContin. And I gave you my word that I don't. Just my word. Junkies have been known to lie. Like addicts have been known to lie. So all I got to do is say, no, I don't have a problem. And you go from suspecting me of having an opioid painkiller problem to trying to literally force the stuff down my neck. Like they were like, are you sure we can't give you some? No, I don't want it. Are you sure? Like, and basically they gave me those big triple dose ibuprofens instead, which, you know, ice and ibuprofen were basically what got me through. But I'll never forget the hypocrisy it takes for a medical professional to think that you might have a problem with this stuff. Yeah. And then, without any conclusive proof that you don't have a problem about it, try and force it on you. Literally, I felt like they were trying to force it down my neck. And, you know, maybe they just wanted to get rid of me.
That is funny, man.
And I was like, no wonder we have a problem with this stuff in this country. No wonder people are losing their homes and their lives and all of this stuff. Like literally, it's almost like I had to arm wrestle them to not hold me down. Like, it was crazy. I've never felt so pressured to do anything by, you know, I would understand it if there was anything other than pain management to it. And bear in mind, I was in California at the time where medicinal marijuana is completely legal and non-habit forming. And you know, I mean, and I was just like, you're just trying to give me this stuff that's killing people and destroying lives, and you're trying really, really hard. I was like, this is why we have this problem in this country. And you just know that there were massive incentives for doctors and hospitals to prescribe these life-ruining drugs. So it's good that the dirty money train seems to have come to an end, but at what cost? It's crazy.
It is. And the stuff that we've tried, the hydrocodone, I want to say it was under the Controlled Substances Act. They have the drug schedules. So there's 1 through 5. Schedule 1 drugs, there's Schedule 5. And 1 is the most dangerous, like when it comes to addiction and, you know, side effects, stuff like that. And then 5 is obviously the most safe. OxyCodone or OxyContin is Schedule 2.
Schedule 1, that's the worst.
Yeah, it's like heroin and stuff like that.
I mean, that's how it got the name hillbilly heroin, because it's one step away from heroin. Yeah, like
OxyContin is a Schedule 2. Yeah, exactly.
It's just crazy. It's absolutely unfreaking conscionable.
The stuff that we took, the hydrocodone, was a Schedule 3 up until a few years ago, and I believe they made it, I think like 5 years ago or so, they made it a Schedule 2 and had all these like tougher prescribing rules for it. But yeah, guess what else other than heroin is a Schedule 1 drug? Marijuana.
Well, I mean, look, this is why I need to be the advocate for medicinal marijuana, for the legalization of marijuana in this country, because I've got absolutely no interest in it. I've got absolutely no interest in taking it recreationally. And by the way, that shows what a freaking L7 square fuddy-duddy I am, that I was like, I won't be interested in taking the marijuana. You don't take marijuana. You smoke marijuana. You toke up. You do you hit the reefer or the who knows. I used to smoke this stuff, and I'm not up on the lingo. Not down with the hippity hop language that goes with the smoking of the mariganja. Here's the thing, though. If you are offered a choice between we got something that's aspirin, and by the way, like they're like, this is when they put me on the ibuprofen, they're like, this is medical grade ibuprofen. I was like, really? What makes it medical grade? They're like, it's the same as taking 3 at the same time. I was like, that's what you're giving me? You're giving me 3 pills of Advil in one? Fantastic. I'm so glad I'm here in the emergency room. Like, this is money well spent. Great news. So they gave me the serious dose ibuprofens, and that's it. My choice was ibuprofen or life-ruining opioid painkiller. There was no in between. And I was like, this is why, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've got no interest in recreationally enjoying marijuana. That's not a thing for me. People say, oh, I use it for stress or fine, whatever. I will not be doing that. But if it came down to the point where I had serious issues of pain management, like if that situation had persisted longer than it did, if I hadn't managed to get off the crutches in a couple of weeks and that level of pain persisted, I probably would have, had I been in the state of California at the time, given medicinal marijuana a try, because there's got to be some better option than life-ruining, habit-forming opiates and taking 3 Advil at once. Like, telling me there's no middle ground? Well, yeah, there is. And it's, a lot to do with medicinal marijuana, and you don't have to smoke it. You don't have to put it in a bong. You can have it in a cookie, or you could, there's all sorts of, you could apply CBD oil directly to the area of pain, which I know a lot of people that do that, and it works great for them. And it involves absolutely no super happy good times that people associate with marijuana. And so for that reason, when I look at like your options being either take 3 of these, meaning an Advil that you could buy over the counter, or take something that could destroy your life, it kind of seems like not legalizing medicinal marijuana, which, although it can be psychologically addictive, is not physically habit forming in this way, is going to be a much better pain management option for a lot of people. Have you ever tried marijuana, Travis, or would you ever? I mean, I know you were a cop, but like in a place, have you ever been in a place where it was legal, or you thought maybe I would enjoy medicinal marijuana if I needed it?
No, I would consider it medicinally if I didn't still hold a police officer's license, but knowing that, in the situation that ever occurred, if I, wanted to do law enforcement again, or if I always think about how cool it would be to go work for customs on a customs boat or something. It's too risky. I mean, I'm all for it in the sense that I think it does have medicinal qualities, but it's too risky and it's just too soon for me to even consider. I've never done the marijuana.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And that's another way in which it would be great if they change things. Because say you are a person like Travis, where you've had a background in law enforcement and you might want to have continue with law enforcement later on in life. I know people that smoke pot in California illegally. I'm like, and now it's completely legal, but like, I know people that would smoke pot illegal, like in California illegally. I was like, just get a prescription card. It's super easy. They're like, no, I don't want that to hold me back from getting hired at specific jobs, especially if I move out of state in the future. And it's weird. It's a weird situation to be put in where, like I said, you have option A being take 3 Advil. Option B, take these painkillers that could ruin your life and get you addicted lickety-frickin' split. Or option C, risk using medicinal marijuana in a place where it's legal and you can get a prescription for it, but it could wind up vastly limiting your life moving forward. It's not a good look.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving your musical savior.
So I think the thing that always interests me the most when it comes to politicians is the level of hypocrisy. The level of hypocrisy that is on display on a regular basis. And I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why people act and do and say things that are so diametrically opposed to who they actually are, but I can't really think of a better example of the hypocrisy that comes in the world of government and lawmaking than this. What was the situation with the Utah lawmaker who wanted to crack down on? All right, let's be very careful on this one, because I want to save the story till later. There was a Utah lawmaker that wanted to make laws against one specific thing even tougher, and as it turns out, the laws he wanted to enforce and the laws that he wanted to make tougher punish people that were into something that he enjoyed on a regular basis. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. We'll talk about this guy a little later on in the show and exactly what it is he wanted to come down so hard on, which is strange because he was only being punitive to himself a little later on. Right now, though, Travis, what is going on in the news?
50 Shades Freed dominated the weekend box office.
Oh, what is that? That's just a new 50 Shades of Grey movie?
It's the new 50 Shades of Grey movie.
Have you seen any of those movies?
No, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, and I don't mean to generalize, but I think mostly guys only go with their worked up women is what generally happens. I kind of danced around that, but I
think you did an okay job. You know what's kind of interesting about the whole 50 Shades of Grey thing? I think it's set in Washington. I'm pretty sure it's set in Washington, Seattle, someplace like that. But you know why it's set in Washington? And you know what else? What other rather well-known piece of fiction was set in Washington?
No, I don't.
The Twilight movies, or the Twilight books,
yes.
or the Twilight,
yes.
The whole shebang. And 50 Shades of Grey is set there because it started off as a piece of Twilight fan fiction. I don't know the ins and outs of it, nor do I know the characters. Some people were on Team Edward. Some people were on Team
Jacob. I probably shouldn't have. I was Team Jacob, just so you know.
Yeah, I was on Team Blow It Out Your Ass. But
I'm not a cheesy movie kind of guy, but I loved the Twilight movies.
Good for you. I never watched them, but I've actually found myself thinking maybe I should go back and watch Harry Potter. I've never seen them. I've done a lot of the judging of people that watch Harry Potter, but I've never actually watched it myself, so maybe I should give it a go. But yeah, those 50 Shades of Grey books started off as Twilight fan fiction. I wonder if the Twilight folks are pay the man, or pay the woman rather. Yeah, there you go. Dominated the box office over the weekend. I think it got savaged by the critics, though. If women want a cheesy, cliched, ultimately unsatisfying sexual experience, why don't they just stay at home with their husbands? Go on.
Well, continuing with it, Jamie Dornan says the 50 Shades movies are not porn.
Well, from what I understand, I haven't seen any of them, but from what I understand, he's right. Porn tends to be more interesting, and based on the previews I've seen, acting and music are considerably better. Go on.
Jamie Dornan does not do full frontal nudity in 50 Shades Free.
Yeah, and if this upsets you and you're not a woman, Mike Pence wants you to burn in hell. You know what's interesting to me about Jamie Dornan, and who is it, Dakota Johnson? That's Don Johnson's daughter, right? Don Johnson and Melanie Griffith's daughter.
Really?
The star of the... Yeah, that's who that is. And everyone was like, oh, they're hot, sexy movies. And, I can't speak to the level of attractiveness of one Jamie Dornan, but there's nothing about... It's not like she's unattractive or anything like that, but there is nothing about her that gets my midsection singing Sweet Virginia. Although I guess that's the thing. It's aimed at women, so they want the female lead to be a little bit more relatable. You put sort of like an Angelina Jolie equivalent of hotness in the starring female role, and all of a sudden it seems like this couldn't be your average female. You know what I mean? Your average moderately attractive female wouldn't have this happen to her. You got to be super... So, okay, maybe I understand why they went with someone who isn't necessarily oh my God, hot. Not that there's anything wrong with her, and if you're way into her, that's cool, and I'm not shaming or anything, but I'm just saying... And even the way she's presented in the bits of the movies that I have seen, it's not like they're trying to make her overtly, smoking hot or anything. I guess that's the point. I think I just answered my own question. This is supposed to be... The appeal of it is supposed to be, this is something that's happening just to an everyday chick. Am I right with that, do you think?
I guess so. I don't really know that much about it. I know it's I know it's like super naughty time, and I know the women seem to really be into it. I would agree with you, though. I don't really think she's that good looking. I don't mean that offensively. I'm not really attracted to her.
Yeah, she's, there's no va-va or accompanying boom when I look at her. So, but, to each their own. What else?
Movie critics have been trashing 50 Shades Freed.
Yeah, oh no, they've been savaging it. Like, yeah, they gave it 2 rubber thumbs down. Go on.
Mike Pence... Sorry.
Just got that one.
Just caught it. Mike Pence refused to make eye contact with Kim Jong-un's sister at Friday's Olympics opening ceremony, even though she was sitting near him.
Well, yeah, not because of any political reason, but because Pence's wife hadn't given him permission to look at her. He's super by the book with his wife. Like, he won't have dinner with another woman if his wife isn't in the room or something like that. He's very, very strict, and like, on the one hand, I respect that. You're being very respectful to the person that you've chosen to make a life with. On the other hand, let's temper this with some reality. I know a lot of guys who said the way I don't cheat is I don't put myself in a position to cheat. As someone who's never cheated before and doesn't understand people that do cheat, I don't get that. I think you cheat or you don't. But the people that say I don't put myself in a position where I might cheat, you got no self-control and you're covering up for something. You're overcompensating in a very interesting way.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So that level of hypocrisy that we alluded to, that seems to be so rife within the political community and the lawmaking community. We'll get into exactly what the hell we're talking about with one Utah lawmaker wanting to really crack down on a crime that, as it turns out, he rather enjoyed committing. What are we getting at here? What are we driving at? We'll do that a little later on in the show. Right now, though, let's finish what remains of the news, Travis.
Kim Jong-un's sister was part of North Korea's Olympic delegation.
Yeah, you can tell that she's one of Kim's favorites, only because he hasn't assassinated her yet. Man, I gotta play you this. Did you hear North Korea's cheer squad?
No, I didn't. No. Is it a joke? I didn't hear it.
No, this is real. North Korea's cheer squad cheering for the Korean women's hockey team. They've got a huge cheer squad at the Olympics to support the athletes, and it's something that you just have to see and hear. Check this out. Quite the impressive level of enthusiasm there, right, Travis?
Wow. Well, I guess you have to be pretty enthusiastic. If you're not enthusiastic enough, they'll probably kill you when you get home.
That's how they acted when their team lost 8-0.
Oh my God, are you serious?
That's a thing. Oh man, we didn't remember how we were talking about the luge yesterday?
Yeah.
And you brought up that Seinfeld. Look, Seinfeld is the king of observation, and he observed that the luge is the only sport where you could do just as well if you didn't mean to participate in the luge.
And that other one that I love is the luge. You know the luge where the guy wears the slick suit?
This is on the bobsled run, but it's not even a sled. It's just Bob. It's just a human being hanging on for their life. This is the whole sport. Just... Oh, he pointed his toes. Oh, this guy's a tremendous athlete. The luge is the only sport I've ever seen that you could have people competing in it against their will, and it would be exactly the same. You know, if they were just grabbing people off the street, hey, what is this? I don't want to be in the luge. You know, you put the helmet on him, you wouldn't really hear him screaming, just, you're in the luge, buddy. World record. Didn't even want to do it. I want to see that event next year, the involuntary luge.
Freaking unbelievable genius.
Hilarious.
I'm going to see him for the first time ever in April. He's playing Vegas. I'm going. It's like a massive life event for me. There's very few things in my life where I've felt as though I'm treating myself, and this is one of those things. Cannot wait to see Jerry Seinfeld in Vegas. So thrilled. All right, Travis, let's roll through what remains of the news, and then we'll discuss the Utah lawmaker that wanted to make punishment on something he really enjoyed even tougher.
Rob Gronkowski is reportedly considering retiring from football to pursue an acting career.
Oh, who's the other guy that did that? What hallowed footsteps are you following in if you're a football player that becomes an actor? Where was it? Oh yeah, O.J. Simpson. That ended well. I mean, and I'm talking about the acting career, not the murderous intent. He's seriously considering retiring from football to pursue acting. Well, evidently still feeling the effects of that concussion. All right, go on.
Scientists are putting tiny 3D glasses on praying mantises.
How do you write the proposal for a research grant to do that? So what we're going to do, maybe this is part of the medicinal marijuana community. You're going to have to really do a couple of bong rips before you understand what we're driving at here, before we ask you for the funding for this particular piece of research. All right, you good and high? Good. Get this, man. We're going to put 3D glasses on praying mantises. What the hell? Why would you just, what's the practical upshot of this? What's the technical application of getting a bug to wear 3D glasses? I would imagine the hardest part is getting the mantises to return the glasses to the tiny cardboard box at the end of the study.
If it didn't, though, I mean, you've seen praying mantises. Would you approach him and ask for it back? I wouldn't. They scare the crap out of me. People actually have these things as pets. They touch them.
Really?
Yes.
One step beyond an ant farm, they take them out of the little glass case and they play with them and stuff?
Yeah, it's crazy. Apparently a praying mantis, and this is kind of sad, kind of not, because they're so creepy. Apparently they're very, very fragile, from what I've read, and they don't have the longest lives, but they're very, very strange, insects. I'm a huge lover of animals. Insects, not so much. I can't deal with it. Even the adorable pictures that I would see of a praying mantis with the 3D glasses on, that would creep me out. I can't stand them.
So, I mean, the thing with a praying mantis is that thing, the act of prayer, having your hands together. I know it's supposed to be prayer and everything, but to me that comes across as intrinsically threatening. If I sit down for an evaluation with one of my 8 million bosses that I've managed to accumulate since I've started in radio, I'm on all these stations, I've got all these different bosses, and they all want to tell me how I'm doing at my job, and that's fine. But one thing I've noticed is I get instantly more when I go in for some sort of evaluation or some sort of meeting where there's a possibility of me being judged. If they put their hands together in a way that implies in the traditional prayer situation, that's scary to me. It seems kind of Bond villain-esque. You know what it's like? It's like Mr. Burns on The Simpsons being like, yes, excellent. Release the hounds. So, to me, a praying mantis is an instantly intimidating thing because it puts its little bug cans together in a way that makes it look as though it's going to release the hounds on me. So I think that's maybe why I'm a little freaked out by the whole praying mantis thing. But yes, science, it's a wonderful thing. All right, couple more pieces of news, then we'll talk about the Utah lawmaker who wants harder punishment for things that he really enjoys. Go on.
There's a new trend of people putting peanut butter on hot dogs.
Oh. I guess, have you ever had one of those Elvis burgers where it's peanut butter and mayo on a hamburger? You ever had one of those?
No, I've had, when I was buying my sailboat, the chick in the marina office was eating chili, and she put peanut butter in, no, sounds disgusting. She put peanut butter in her chili, and I was kind of like in awe and disgusted at the same time, and she was insistent that I try a bite, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. And she's like, you're not leaving here until you try a bite of this. And I'm going to tell you, it was strangely good.
You know, it's funny because I think the first time I had Ethiopian food, I realized there was like, and satay chicken, that's chicken and peanut sauce. It's basically chicken and peanut butter, which sounds terrible. But, you know, as it turns out, it's delicious. And peanuts are used, I guess, as an alternative protein all over the world. And I remember having Ethiopian food once, and I don't remember what it was with the peanuts, but I remember going, oh, peanuts and peanut butter in this stuff, actually surprisingly good. And it's just not on bread with jelly the way we've been raised to consume it in America. But I've had peanut butter on a burger before just because it was on the menu, and out of a sense of morbid curiosity, I wanted to try it, or maybe a sense of morbidly obese curiosity. And I tried it. I was like, this is the Elvis burger, huh? And you know what? It wasn't like disgusting or anything, but it tasted like peanut butter and mayo on a hamburger.
Oh no!
And like those things didn't go together. I was not surprised, nor was I disgusted, nor was I of a mind to ever try it again. What else?
A new study links asparagus to cancer.
What?
Yeah.
Well, you know it's never been linked to cancer? Snickers bars. So I'm good.
Oh my god. Yeah, so good. So good.
Yeah, actually, no, I tell a lie. I just cooked up like 1.5 pounds of asparagus on the grill the other day, and that's disheartening news. I love asparagus. That's all right. Hey, we should talk about this dude. Give me the cliff notes on this one, Travis Golightly. The dude in Utah, the lawmaker that wants to make something. He wants punitive judgment on people that participate in this activity to be even tougher, except for he's one of the people that likes to participate in the activity. Go.
A former Republican member of the House of Representatives who voted for stronger penalties for prostitution has resigned amid allegations that he used taxpayer money to pay for hotel rooms to hook up with, yes, a prostitute.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know how this all came out. I mean, obviously, the call girl herself is the reason it came out. She says he paid her $250 for sexy time twice while he was in Salt Lake. He's from down in St. George in southern Utah. And one time she said that he asked if she could bring some accessories or toys, perhaps a corset.
So here's the thing. Look, the fact that politicians and lawmakers are giant hypocrites and probably covering up for something when they go hardcore on this sort of thing, that's not new news. What boggles my mind is the call girl, Bree Taylor, I think her name is.
That's correct.
I don't understand prostitution, meaning I don't understand the mechanics of it and how it works. Because have you ever seen that show, I think it's called Cat House on HBO, about the legal brothel in Nevada?
I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually seen it.
So, like, I watched that show, and I got to tell you, the ladies of the night that work at the Cat House, for the most part, are not the most attractive women I've ever seen. They're a little ropey, and the idea that they're charging the amount of money that they're charging for some of these encounters blows my mind, because they're not. And I was like, I guess getting hookers is really, really expensive. I don't know anything about it, but like, they're not that good looking, and they're charging thousands upon thousands of dollars. And then I look at this picture of Bree Taylor, and she's, not Bree Taylor. That's the name of the hooker that turned in the lawmaker, right?
Yeah. She's not that good looking.
I mean, she's not hideous by any stretch of the imagination. I don't find her to be super attractive, but I found her to be several notches above the cast members of that TV show Cat House, who are charging thousands for their services. She needs to up her prices. No wonder she was mad. No wonder she turned this guy in. He's getting paid. Not only was he a hypocrite, he's a cheap hypocrite, paying $250 a pop when the chicks on Cat House are making like $1,000, $2,000 to spend. Wow. Yeah. No. You know what? I see why she was mad and wanted to turn him in.
At one point, she actually offered. He tried to hook up with her, and she didn't have a babysitter or something. I think was the situation. And she's like, "Are you available tomorrow? I'll give you a discount."
I can see why people are getting into prostitutes. That's really selling the fantasy. Sorry, I can't get a sitter, so I can't come and let you shtup me for $250. Oh. And so she offered him a discount. She discounted the rate from $250 because she couldn't make it, and he was such a... Oh, man. What the hell, man? What the hell? Why would you do this in Utah? Move. Go to Nevada. Go someplace this is legal. Apparently, the rates you can charge are significantly better. That's my advice for the retailers of this world. I'm sure they're grateful.
I just hate you so